Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West. And today, despite Kanye tweeting some wild things like he's going to get Taylor her masters, we're going to be talking a little bit about contracts. And I'm going to do a few videos. I did one video about this, doing all the tabs, and it took like 35 minutes, and I was just like, this is too dense. Like, too dense. Like, some of the videos take that long and cover a lot of topics. This was just too dense, so we're gonna break it into a few videos. So first up, we have this article from Shawn Setaro at Complex, and I know that Complex can be hit or miss on its content, especially like breaking news content. But when I see an article by Shawn Setaro, I pay attention to it. Like, I respect him, I respect his work. So this was one where I was just like, okay, good. Thank you that it's Shawn that wrote this. So some of the things that we find out from this, the major things, and probably the two major things, are the lost Yeezus tapes and the masters agreements. I mean, because the contract, there isn't really any kind of like smoking gun, big breakthrough. Oh my God, I can't believe that's happening. It's a lot of standard stuff and it's kind of boring. But within that, there are complications, which we'll get at looking at this, but also looking at this post from Wolf1234. So for the most part, that's like what Setaro found was that Kanye goes over budget a lot. So you can see that Yeezus went $1.5 million over budget, and the budget for production of the album was already $4 million. There was $12 million in a pool of money, and $8 million went to the advance for Kanye, leaving $4 million for the album. So the total cost for Yeezus was $5.5 million. And then he also went $1.5 million over on the Cruel Summer movie and then $1.3 million over on the Cruel Summer album. So that's a total of $4.3 million just on two projects that Kanye went over. I don't think that includes the Yeezus movie. Maybe that was self-funded, which another reason why it didn't come out. But Cruel Summer movie never got shown to anybody. It had a few film festival experiences, and that's it. So he spent like 1.5 million more on that than was initially planned, even though the movie never saw the light of day, was never able to recoup anything. That's just money spent that doesn't go anywhere, which is kind of impressive. Kanye spent 2 months and 9 days in Paris in 2013, and it cost $500,000 or $7,000 a day, which is kind of wild. And then here is one of the like kind of controversial aspects of music contracts, and that's the advance system. So you can see that Shawn says here, Kanye would surely never argue that money can replace ownership. And with rare exceptions, payment from a record company is kind of a loan. You must make the label that money back before they can start paying you again. Even with all of that, Kanye made a lot of money over the years. So from that $12 million pool of money for Yeezus, $8 million of that was the advance for Kanye to keep. So that is set off against what Yeezus sells, right? So from that 12 million, if Kanye is going to get any kind of royalties, right? Like maybe he's getting 15% royalty or 20% royalty, that's only after Def Jam has made back their entire budget. So the album has to sell enough to make back the 8 million advance that they gave to Kanye, and then the 4 million for production, and then the 1.5 that he goes over, and whatever the marketing is, and only then will Kanye start to get the revenue split, which is why that 8 million up front is kind of meaningful, and is the risk that the company takes on as well, because Yeezus did not sell as well as previous albums, right? It was controversial when it came out, it was jarring. It's not selling like triple platinum the way that Late Registration was. So they spent $8 million just on Kanye's advance. Are they going to recoup that anytime in the near future? Probably eventually, absolutely. But it's going to take Kanye, like, I don't know, he's still may not be making money on Yeezus, right? Because Def Jam's still trying to recoup everything that they spent on Yeezus, which is kind of wild to think about. So it's good for Kanye in the sense that like he does get 8 million up front no matter what, and he doesn't actually have to actively pay them back. It's the album that's doing the work to pay them back. But then at the same time, he's still losing out on the fact that he's not getting any payments from Yeezus, particularly maybe for years. And there is this idea of creative accounting. The movie industry is best known for this, where they will like switch numbers around, do crazy things to where a movie can have a budget of 50 million and make 400 million, but still somehow show that it's losing money and not never pay anything that they're supposed to pay in royalties or revenue sharing or profit sharing, because there's never actively a profit. And I think some of that comes from the fact that they pay some people based on the gross, right? Or on the box office. So you have people that might get 1% of the box office, meaning that from that 400 million, they're getting 1% of that or 5% of that, which means they're getting paid out before anybody else can make any money. And if there's still not a profit because those people are taking a majority of the income, then the other people that are getting paid just on the profits really aren't getting paid that much money. So there are things like that that happen that might be more prevalent in the movie industry than the music industry, but still could also apply to the music industry. We don't really know who's getting paid off of this stuff and how much then is left over for Kanye in the aftermath. One of the interesting things, though, is you can see that there was a clause that there was almost always a clause where Kanye could keep whatever money was left over at the end of the process. So if from that $12 million pool, the production for Yeezus had only been $2 million, he would have gotten to keep the leftover $2 million, but he still went over budget by $1.5 million. And then surprisingly, Kanye's 2012 deal for his sixth and seventh albums, the sixth being Yeezus, said that the record, which would become The Life of Pablo, would give him a $3 million advance and a $3 million budget, significantly less than Yeezus. That being a 2012 deal, it is interesting to think that they would do for the sixth album essentially $12 million allocated to the album, and for the next one, $6 million allocated to the album. Like, I could understand if in the aftermath of Yeezus not selling as high as other things, they cut the next budget down. There was also speculation that I saw that they actually took money out of the budget to recoup. So the fact that Yeezus did go over budget actually took away from the budget for The Life of Pablo. So I don't know if Shawn's just saying what he observed in the actual 2012 numbers, or if there had been some kind of addendum or change or where the figures came from. He does say it's unclear if those terms remained or were later renegotiated. In that same month, Kanye made a deal with Island Def Jam that got him an additional $3 million free and clear, as well as a significant budget for the label. There were also six-figure sales bonuses for late registration, and you can see that the budget for late registration, Kanye got a $2.3 million advance and $1.2 million as a recording budget. And like late registration going triple platinum definitely made back, like he recouped on that big time. And so this was the other big thing. There's a lost Yeezus tape. So in the fairly long and boring outline of a so-called production distribution deal, there's an interesting tease. In addition to a new album after the release of Yeezus, Kanye is given the option to release an album of previously recorded unreleased songs, which the contract tentatively titles Lost Yeezus Tapes. Obviously, this never happened, and Ye went straight on through to Life of Pablo, but the mere mention of lost music from Yeezus sessions has given hope to Kanye obsessives everywhere, which Shawn actually linked to West Sub Ever, which is kind of funny, and the mention of the lost Yeezus tapes. So it was actually, whatchamacallit, Rick Rubin seemed to talk about like all the extra material that they had for Yeezus. Like it was originally 3 hours and they cut it down, and there could be a Yeezus 2. There was talks about that for a little bit. And you have to wonder if possibly, there was conversation around the Lost Yeezus tapes coming out and Kanye having mentioned, since the contract stated that this was going to be a thing, that they were going to be working on that. But alas, nothing. And then here is the thing about the masters, which has been made a big deal about, right? Because Kanye's talked about master ownership. And we're actually going to make another video going over this Jay-Z rumor that Jay-Z backstabbed Kanye. But that was all about the masters as well. So what they find was that The very first deal, like the 2002 deal that Kanye had with Rockefeller, it was for 6 albums essentially, or 5 albums. His first one and then 5 more and 4 more. Yeah, first one and then 4 more. And all of those are property of Rockefeller. Like there was no language in there for Kanye to ever own those masters. Meaning that when Rockefeller was sold to Def Jam, that Def Jam became the owner of the masters. And there's still no language in the contract for Kanye to buy them back. Meaning effectively, Kanye, well, and legally, Kanye would never be able to have ownership of the College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, 808s, or My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. But in the contract, it did have stipulations in 2012 that he was going to be able to own his 6th and 7th album masters, but only 20 years after they came out. So what, 2033 and 2036, right? And he has to have recouped all of his expenses or pay what he's outstanding to Def Jam. So for example, say he had gone $5 million over budget on Life of Pablo, Yay, Jesus is King, and those albums hadn't made up that $5 million. If Kanye wanted to buy his masters back or get his masters at that 20-year mark, he would have to make sure that balance is paid off, right? Or he'd have to wait until it's paid off through like the streaming purchase of those albums. And then what, with his 8th and 9th albums, 8th, 9th, and 10th, because Kanye had signed a contract extension through 10 albums, he can own those as well, but after 7 years. So first 5 albums, no ownership, 6 and 7, 20 years, 8, 9, 10, 7 years. Man, that's a long time that he has to wait for any of those masters ownership. And that's what Setaro tells us and what we learned. We're going to be going through in another video this post here by Wolf1234. I'm going to limit this one, and then we'll go over kind of the rest of this stuff that's been going on as well. But if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support us, the easiest way is liking, subscribing, or commenting. All of those things tell YouTube that this is a channel people enjoy, and then YouTube shows it to more people. And then we also have a Patreon for our podcast, which is Watching the Throne, a lyrical analysis of Kanye West. And it's a thing that we're most well known for. We spent 5 years going line by line, track by track, album by album through Kanye's entire discography. And those episodes were available for free everywhere. But we're going through a second time because there's things that we've learned. Because when we started, Life of Pablo wasn't out yet. Yay, Kids See Ghosts, Jesus is King. So having the context of those albums and just learning more about Kanye through the process of going through the albums, we have deeper insight into a lot of the earlier projects than what we had when we initially did the show. Except this time we're releasing those on Patreon first. 2 episodes a week. You can see that we've released Gold Digger, Late Register, Touch the Sky, Heard Him Say. We actually already recorded our Drive Slow episode. So while the College Dropout episodes are releasing on our public feed for free for everyone, 1 episode a week, we're releasing the Late Registration episodes 2 at a time for our Patreon subscribers. And then we'll go on to Graduation, 808s and Heartbreak, etc., etc. So if you want to get all of the episodes as soon as possible, this is the way. And then if you want to wait for the free ones, it just might take a little bit of time, but they'll eventually be available. So just patreon.com/Kanye podcast. Until the next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.